Hey knitters, thank you so much for watching my third episode of the Wise Owl Knits Fibercast. I'm Cheryl Beckrich and I'm a knitwear designer. I do a lot of knitting, I sew, I quilt, and I will talk about all of my fiber obsessions on this Fibercast. I really appreciate you joining me today. I know there's a lot of different podcasts and media that you have to choose from, and I really appreciate you spending a little time with me. Thank you so much. Today, first off, I'll talk about what I'm wearing. This is the cable top boxy. I'm going to stand up. Oh, Barley, you have to move just a second. Put a little step stool here so that you can see it. The cable top boxy is knit in DK yarn. I got this yarn when I was on vacation in Maine, and it's from Swan Island. So, like I said, a DK weight. I just looked on their website, and it looks like now they only have fingering weight yarn, but this is DK. Obviously, other DK would work well too. Something from Skeins or Cascade or a hand dyer in something tonal would look fabulous. This pattern came out, I was trying to think of exactly when it came out. I would say 4 or 5 years ago. We went to Maine with another couple for the wedding of some other good friends of ours' daughter, and they got married out on a point in Portland, Maine. It was beautiful. But a week before the wedding, we traveled all around and went to Acadia and saw all the sights and just had a wonderful time. Ate lots and lots of lobster. So it was just a good, fun trip. There were 2 couples, my husband and I, and some friends of ours, and we just drove around. I talked them into going to a couple of yarn stores, and my friend, the other wife that was with us, she is a weaver, though at the time she wasn't. She just was doing mostly a lot of sewing at that time. But she's developed quite a yarn collection since then, and part of it she got on that trip. So this sweater is meaningful because of where I got the yarn, but also one of my favorite patterns. Easy to wear. I think it looks good on most people. It's very size inclusive. It goes anywhere from for a 33, 32, 33-inch bust to a 60-inch bust. Plus, it's got lots of ease, so it probably could go larger than that. I have it a little bit cropped, not really cropped, but like waist length. You can obviously make it longer than that too if you want a longer sweater, but love for you to give it a try sometime. Just a little bit of cabling, not very much, so it's a lot of stockinette stitch. So good TV, mindless knitting. So that's what I'm wearing today, the cable top boxy. The quilt in the background is the Lookout Tree and Animal Sampler, and that's a quilt that I'm working on for my niece and her husband for their new baby. I showed this the last time and I haven't made any more progress. I need to get the batting. I think I've got enough batting here somewhere, but I need to get the batting cut out to the right size and get it quilted. And that is on my agenda for this week. So hopefully next week it will be a finished object. So that's the Lookout Tree and Animal Sampler, and it's from a designer called Elizabeth Hartman. She does a lot of outdoorsy type quilts, so I can see that I'll probably make more of those in my future. Also still working on the God's Promise socks, and I haven't gotten any further on those yet this week, so I won't show you those. Then I've got the Bybri hat, and that is in the bag by Delightful Works with the, if I put it over here away from my other monitor, with the cotton on the fabric, and the fabric is cotton. Lovely bucket bag. And the Bybri hat. You can tell by my progress keeper that I made a little bit of progress. It's down here and I'm up here. This is 2-color brioche, so it takes 2 rounds to make 1 row of knitting, but I've just sat it here by my computer so that I can work on it while I'm waiting for my computer, because you know how that happens all the time. You type something in and you wait, and my computer's fairly new and should be pretty fast, but it's been a little sluggish lately. So made a little progress on the Bybri hat, and that is one of my patterns available on my website. I use it a lot. I use it a lot for baby hats too, because it's so nice and stretchy that if you're kind of guessing on the size of a baby's head, that's a nice one to use. Seems to fit lots of different babies and adults. So the Bybri hat. Next is my Faucette. My Faucette is in my bag from Sage Valley Handmade, and I think I got this with the Christmas cash from Carista at Sweet Mountain Crafts a couple of years ago. Lovely bag, kind of a waxed bottom, which is really nice. Lovely drawstring bag. And that's Sage Valley Handmade. The gal's name is Amanda, and she is an online friend of mine, though I've never met in person. So my Faucette is coming along. See if I can I'm gonna do a little scooching around of it so that you can actually see it. I'm getting ready to move on to the textured section of the Faucette. So I've done a row of bobbles there, second row of bobbles there, and then a color work section that is stranded color work. A lot of the color work on the Faucette is done with slip stitches, which is a nice introduction to it. And the stranded color work is all just 1 stitch wide. So it's really, maybe a couple of times, it's 1 to 3 stitches wide. So it's a good pattern for somebody who is just trying color work for the first time. No long floats, makes it pretty easy. It's on like a 24-inch needle, so it's pretty squished up. It looks like it's way too small for me, but I think it's going to be fine once all is done. So that again is the Faucette. The pattern is by Devin Ventry of Knitty McPurley, and right now you're probably seeing a lot of these online because she is having a Faucette along 2023, and lots of people are doing the Faucette. This is my first one. Some of my online friends are maybe on their 3rd or 4th Faucette, and many people are on their 2nd. So it's a fun pattern to knit. It goes really quickly, and you should join along. The website to get the pattern is knittymcpurley.com, and Faucette is Fossette. So just look for that in her sweater pattern section. So that's the Faucette. And the next thing that I'm working on is a baby blanket that I'm making on my knitting machine. And that will be a donation for Birthline, which is a Catholic charity in Indianapolis that supports moms in need, with layouts and items for the new baby and just things to help out. So I'm making a blanket on there. I'm going to insert a picture The thing with the knitting machine is a lot of it is really fast, but it only does stockinette stitch unless you manipulate some of the stitches manually to do garter stitch. So I did 6 rows of stockinette, and I'm gonna let those roll up. And then I'm going to do 6 garter ridges, maybe 5 if it totally drives me crazy. But I think 6 would be better and keep the rolling down. And then I'm going to do garter stitch on each end. But every other row, you have to manipulate the stitches. So each stitch you have to go in with a latch and let it fall down and then pull it up the other direction. So you're changing. When you look at the knitting machine, the stitches that are towards you are the purl stitches and the knit stitches on the side that you can't see. So I just have to change it from a purl to a knit to make it garter stitch. So this is my first time trying to do that. I've made a couple of other blankets on the knitting machine, and I just added borders afterwards, but this time I thought I would try and do it on the machine. So stay tuned. We'll see how that works. I'm finding my eyes may not be good enough to do it. It's a heavy yarn that I'm working with, but I'm using Lion Brand Mandala. But the way you have to put the knitting on the machine, you put weights on the bottom so it stretches it. So it seems a little tedious to me to manipulate the stitches, but I'm hoping that I'll get better and better at it as I do it more, because it's definitely really awkward for me right now. So that is my baby blanket on the knitting machine using Lion Brand Mandala. And let's see what color this is. The color is Troll. Like a troll under the bridge, possibly. Anyway, it's really, the colors are pretty. It'll be a beautiful blanket. And hopefully I'll have that to show you next week as a finished object. That's my goal. The next thing that I'm working on is just in my brain right now. Hasn't been started, but it will be shortly. I need to make 2 more Christmas stockings for some children of a friend of mine, and she's kind of friend, kind of a relative. We've kind of adopted them as relatives, though they're technically in-laws to me. So, but they've got 2 young kids. Actually, they've got 3 young kids because they have a new baby too. But I told her that I would love to make them Christmas stockings. She had complimented some that I made for my niece and said her kids don't have Christmas stockings, and I couldn't let that go. So I said, I'll make the older 2 kids Christmas stockings this year, and we'll make the baby a Christmas stocking for the following year. And if I get really ambitious and have some time, I will get all 3 done this year. Likely that will happen, but I just didn't want to overcommit. So that's 3 Christmas stockings, or 2 Christmas stockings plus 1 next year that are in the works. Hopefully cast on soon. The next thing that I'm working on is Cindy's blanket for her daughter-in-law. And Cindy was a friend of mine and co-worker who passed away a year ago Christmas, and she had started a blanket for her daughter-in-law, Alex, and she had 8 blanket squares complete. And so I am doing some more. She had 3 colors, this cream color, and then a light gray and a darker gray. There's the light gray. They're not all quite the same size, so we might have to do some trim on some of them too. I've done, these are all the ones that Cindy had done. That one's ribbing, so I think it'll stretch big enough. And here's another one in the darker gray and a different rib. I've got 2 completed squares that I have at my office, and I decided I would leave that there. Again, while I'm waiting for the computer, I can sit there and do a few stitches. So have 2 blocks complete there, which makes a total of 10. Cast on for a 3rd block there. So at the very minimum, I need to have 12 blocks, but I think I would be better off with 16 or 20. So, and I think there's plenty of yarn for 20. There isn't much of the dark gray. The yarn is Premier Everyday Worsted. So I'm sure I can get some more of that, and I don't think it will have to be the same exact dye lot as long as I can find the same colors. Got plenty of the white, and I think I've got plenty of the light gray. Another skein of the dark gray would probably be a good thing. So that is Cindy's blanket. No pattern name. I'm just randomly doing patterns, which is what she was doing too. When her daughter-in-law asked her to make it, she gave her a pattern that was a crocheted pattern. So Cindy just said, I can wing it and make these blocks and put them all together, and I'm sure Alex will love it. So need to get this finished for Alex. Okay. The only thing that I've finished is something that I said was finished last week, and the knitting was finished, but I still had to add the name and add the lining to the colorwork Christmas stocking for baby G, and got that done. I'm going to insert the picture right here. So the lining is all added. I duplicate stitched on the name. And lastly, we'll move on to what I'm designing. The Trinity Trio is the first thing that I'm going to talk about in my designs, and I've talked about this on the other 2 Fibercast, but the pattern writing is complete. I've gotten it back from the tech editor, and I am going to be emailing all my people who had indicated that they want to be on my tester list. So I'm going to be emailing all of them after I finish recording. So by the time you see this on YouTube, the testers will have been notified that we're ready to start testing, and they always have the option to say, hey, yeah, I'd like to participate in this test, or I don't have time to do it now, keep me on the list, kind of a thing. Never any obligation for anybody to test, but they can at least be on the list so they get notification when it's time to test, and they can decide whether they want to participate in the test or not. So it's always exciting to get to the testing part of the process, because it's, especially with a colorwork sweater, it's always so interesting to see what other people pick out. Tons of great color combinations. And I'm sure we'll see a lot of green in this, but I'm sure we'll see a lot of other colors too. So can't wait to get started on that. And then once that's over, we'll be able to publish the pattern. So that's the Trinity Trio. This is my next design. It's my yet to be named cable poncho. I'm almost done with the body. I've got to add the ribbing and then bind off for the body. And then I'm going to add a ribbed collar that is not really a shawl collar, but it'll probably be 8 or 9 inches long or wide, and will flip over So that will be the collar. I sewed it together over here on this side, and just whip stitched in and out. So not whip stitched, but up and down through, just to hold it together so I could put it on the mannequin so you could kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. And along this seam, there will be buttons, and it will probably be sewn maybe to about there, and then the collar can flip over and be on that. And you can wear it. I have the seam on this side, but you can determine how you want to wear it. It's a poncho. You can scooch it all around and see what works best for you. Lots and lots of cables. So if you're a cable lover, this might be a good pattern for you. I have, as you can see, gotten most of the knitting done. I need to complete that. I have the charts basically done. I'm sure they need a little bit of tweaking, but those are basically done. It's just a big rectangle, but there is some decreasing and increasing for the neckline. So I've got that all charted out. And really what I need to do next is the part that I don't enjoy quite as much, which is writing out the written instructions. I am totally a chart person. I very, very rarely use the written out instructions on a pattern. I always use charts, and it just seems, to me, it seems so much easier. But, you know, everybody's different and people like different things. And I always provide the instructions charted because that's what I love, and totally written out too. And if you're somebody who's new to charts, then having everything written out is a good way to learn to use charts too, because you can go back and forth and compare the two. So I need to get that done and get that off to the tech editor. So that will be the next pattern to be published, most likely, unless I do a quick hat or something in between. And then thirdly, I've got a colorwork fingering sweater in the works, but I have not started knitting on that yet. I guess now I'm going to complete the faux set, and then we'll start on that one. And this knitting will be done, so that gives me a little more time for knitting that. And the Christmas stockings, and, you know, and the blanket squares. So there's always more to do. So those are my designs in progress right at the moment. Now for some good news. My good news for this week is really about the knitting community. And though it has changed a lot over the last few years and some crazy stuff has happened, there's still a really good, supportive knitting community out there. If you're lucky enough to have people in your community that you can knit with, that is fantastic. I have a group at church that meets monthly, and they're not all knitters, but they're crafters of different kinds, knitters and quilters and crocheters and card makers, all kinds of different things. But a nice community of mostly women that get together on a regular basis is wonderful. I also have a knit night that I have at my house every week. And that is, it's very much social knitting, but it's also lessons, and anybody who comes to it gets any of my patterns for no charge, but I do charge for the knit night. But it's got a wonderful group of women that come to that regularly. We're all close friends now, and it's just fun to have that group of people to be able to hang around with. And, you know, we all like the same things, which is great. We've got our lives are very varied in other respects, but we've got the craft to pull us together. I was lucky enough to attend a few retreats. I did a couple of retreats before the pandemic. One was a knitting pipeline retreat and was lovely, met so many nice women there and have kept in touch with most of them. Just in January, I went to the Knitting McPurley retreat down in Lake Junaluska, North Carolina. Here's the little sticker. Devin did this. She's so creative. It's all done with knitting. See the garter stitch water there. But some of the women that were on the Knitting Pipeline retreat with me were also at that retreat. So it was nice to reconnect with them. And then it was also great to connect with some wonderful knitting friends that I met online during the pandemic and really before the pandemic. We were all kind of people that had not necessarily left Ravelry, but kind of scaled back our Ravelry use and came to become a nice knitting community just online. We Zoomed a lot, got to know these women really well, and several of them went to the Knitting Pearly retreat also. And I was so gratified to find that, you know, I thought I knew these women pretty well, but you don't really know people until you meet them in person. And everybody was just so nice and genuine in exactly the same way as they were online. So that kind of boosted my confidence. There's many people in our group that weren't able to go to the retreat, but I feel like I know them all just as well because we do talk online almost on a daily basis. We know about each other's families. We talk about problems. We talk about happy things, but just nice to have a community, whether it is online or in person, and that is live and well in the knitting community. That's my good news. One other thing that I wanted to add, some more good news. I discovered a couple of new podcasts that I wanted to share with you. One is from Chicken Lady Fiber Arts, and she has just done an introductory podcast, but it sounds like she's going to do more. It's called Yarn Twiddling, and Lynn's always funny, so I think you'll enjoy that. And I will insert a link to that in my show notes. And the other one is from Lisa Hennessy, who was another person who was on the Knitting McPurley retreat. And I didn't realize that she did a podcast and has written a book. I'm not sure if it's a book or a blog. I'll have to check into that a little bit more. But her podcast is called Knit, Pray, Crochet, and a very spiritual podcast. But also has a lot of knitting content too, so kind of right up my alley. And I will insert a link to that also. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back again next week, God willing. Thanks so much and happy knitting. Bye.